we've got a complicated one coming up. X plus 1 raised to the third power. So we want to expand this. Let's go ahead and I'll go ahead and write an equal sign down here. So what does this mean? This means that it's x plus 1 times x plus 1 times x plus 1. There's 3 of them. So how do we go about multiplying these together? Well, we chew it off a little bit at a time. What I mean by that is let's go ahead and multiply these two together first. Then we'll get that polynomial. It'll have 3 terms in it. And then, much like the last problem we just got through working, we'll multiply it just like that. So we should know how to multiply x plus 1 times x plus 1. Right, so we're going to multiply our first terms, our outside terms, inside terms, and then last terms. X times x is x squared. Then we have x times 1. It's just x. 1 times x, x, and 1 times 1. Okay. Now all of this is going to be multiplied by x plus 1. But let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit. So we have x squared plus, collecting our like terms up, we're going to add them. There's 2 of them. And now we multiply that by x plus 1. Okay, so we can look at this differently. Since the x plus 1 is over here on the right hand side, you can multiply this x squared times x. Gives us x cubed, and then x squared times 1 just gives us x squared. Now let's go to the next term. 2x times x gives us 2x squared, and then 2x times 1 gives us 2x. All right, let's go to the next one. So 1 times x is just x, and then 1 times 1 is just 1. Hey, I think that was a little different than the last time we did that, but it all works out. Now what we want to do is look at collect up our like terms. Well, there isn't anything that's like x raised to the third power. We have x squared, 2x squared. They're like terms, add their coefficients. Makes that 3x squared. 2x plus x is going to be 3x. And then we only have one constant term, and that is the 1. Okay, moving right along. Hopefully you're catching on. All right, so we have this negative sign out here in the front. And how do we deal with that? Well, probably what we can do is go ahead and and pretend that's like a minus 1 out there and distribute it inside each one of the terms. Okay, let's just do that. Okay. And then, of course, we need to write equals there. I always forget. Okay. Yeah. So now we go ahead and multiply negative 3x squared times that negative x squared. So it's going to make that a positive 3x to the fourth. Remember, we add their exponents. Negative 3x squared times x is going to be minus 3x to the third, right? 2 plus 1. And then negative 3x squared times that minus 1 there is going to be a positive 3x squared. Okay. Now we have this 1 here. So you can think of it as a negative 1 times negative x squared gives us a positive x squared. Negative 1 times positive x is negative x. And negative 1 times negative 1 is a positive 1. A positive 1. Okay. Let's go ahead and collect up our like terms. Okay, so we don't have anything else to the third power. However, we have some like terms here. 3 plus 1 is 4. X squared minus x plus 1. Okay, that should pretty much do that. Just check and make sure everything's good on there. Okay, let's do a couple final ones here. X to the 2a. You know what? Let's let me look. There's JFK. Oh, you don't even want to know anything about that. Don't go down that rabbit hole. I somehow got hooked up into that the last few weeks. Oh my gosh, I had no idea all that stuff existed. I mean, I understood, you know, I knew he was assassinated in Dallas, but I didn't know all the stuff that went with it. There's some people out there that are completely obsessed 50 years later. Or no, wait a minute, it's been longer than 50 years. Okay, we got to get back to this. Avoid that at all costs if you can, because it is addicting. You will not trust the government after about a few days of that. A plus 5. So we're looking at something more general here. We have x raised to the 2a plus 1 times x raised to the a plus 5. Okay. Let's combine those two. What do? Remember, we add the exponents. So this becomes 2a plus 1 plus a plus 5. A plus 5. So basically, we got a polynomial. Let's just go ahead and write it here up in the exponent. Collecting like terms, 2a, a. These are two like terms, so that becomes 3a. And then we have a 1 and a 5 plus 6. X raised to the 3a plus 6. Okay, there's reasons why you'd need to do that, but we're not going to talk about that right now. These are just the properties of exponents. All right, what happens if we had x to the 2a plus 1 and the whole thing the whole thing is raised to the a plus 5. So what do we do with our exponents? Well, in this case, remember, we multiply them. So we have x raised to the 2a plus 1, and it's going to be multiplied by a plus 5. A plus 5. So if we want to multiply these two together, you'd multiply it like you normally would, right? We'll just write it down here. X, so we have 2a times a is 2a squared. And then 2a times 5 is going to be 10a. And then 1 times a is a, and 1 times 5 is 5. Probably going, what in the world? Let's try to clean this up. We have some like terms, so 10a plus a is 11a. And plus 5, no other like terms. So this is all up in the exponent. Up in the exponent, okay? Okay, well, I think that we are finished on multiplication of polynomials. You should have a fairly working knowledge of it. Of course, all this stuff builds on one another, and we just continue to do the same things over and over again as we work our way through intermediate algebra. And like I said earlier, to work higher mathematics like trigonometry and calculus and beyond, we got to get these intermediate steps out of the way. Okay, the intermediate steps. It's like learning how to write basic sentences, and then connecting them to paragraphs, and then writing stories. Anyway, all right. Well, this is where we're at. We're at my YouTube channel here, and I'll see you there. See you in the next section. Actually, what is the next section? Something to do with polynomials. Factoring polynomials, which is definitely a very important section, especially if you're going to take a basic calculus class. You had better know how to factor. All right. I will see you in the factoring of polynomials.